All right, welcome everyone to the April edition 2017 of Exchange.js. I am back after like a 3-year hiatus in emceeing duties this month, as Mark is actually presenting, and he shouldn't have to do double duty emceeing and presenting tonight. So for those who are new to the Exchange.js Meetup, we always do a round of introductions so everyone gets a chance to know each other. So this time for our theme, we're going to say our names, and then also whether when you program in JavaScript, if that's primarily like the thing you do for your job or studies, or if it's just like a hobby thing that you're trying to get into and maybe you're a bit newer. So we'll start with, how about the far corner over there?
Hi everyone, my name is Hafiz. Recently moved to Edmonton a couple of months ago. I program just as a novice on the side, not really for work. So I am in the technology field, like a strategy role. Hi, my name is Robin. I'm pretty new to programming, but I'm learning JavaScript as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Frank. I'm a student at the University of Alberta. I'm graduating.
Hi, my name is Alex. I do programming with JavaScript mainly with TypeScript.
I'm Casey. My full-time job is programming with JavaScript. I'm David. I do a mix of .NET and JavaScript.
I'm Ben. I work at Jobber. I do program in JavaScript for work, but I actually probably do more on the side as a hobby.
I'm Andrew. I also work at Jobber, and I do JavaScript primarily at work and a little bit on the side as a hobby.
I'm Kevin. I also work at Jobber. I do more programming with JavaScript as a hobby than work, but there is non-trivial evidence to suggest that I've programmed in JavaScript before my work.
I've seen it happen once or twice. This is true. Yes.
Hi, my name's Paul. At this point, I'm sure your question, I just came in sort of a little late. At this point, it's more of a hobby, but at some point, I definitely plan on transitioning into, making money from it at some point. But at this point, it's a hobby.
My name is Dustin. I do JavaScript primarily at work.
Hello, I'm Sean. I program in JavaScript. I started as a hobby forever ago, and now I do it for work and a hobby.
Christian, yeah, probably pretty even split. Mostly what I program for work, but also lots of hobby projects and stuff too.
I'm Jim. I'm mostly hobby.
I'm Amelia. Unless it's work, I do a variety of front-end stuff, including JavaScript, but occasionally spills into hobby side.
I'm Mark. Most of my work is actually Ruby and JavaScript. It's about an even split. But I would say just with the meetup and stuff, it's probably also my hobby as well. So.
Great. I'll go the back row.
Yeah.
That's I like the back up the
I'm
rows.
Jeff, and mostly for work. I don't have time for it as a hobby. I have kids instead. I need them to do it as a hobby. Sorry.
No, that's good. I'm Dan. I don't have kids, and I do it for work and as a hobby. I usually take the stuff that I do at work and I turn it into add-ons and things that all for everybody else to use.
Brad, I do it for work and for hobby.
Michelle, and I'm a freelancer, work with JavaScript for a couple of years. You just like it.
Chris, I use JavaScript at work among other languages, and I don't do it as a hobby very much. I listen to you guys talk about it for a hobby. I'm Daniel. I use it in my studies.
I'm Yuan. I'm a Java developer. I love JavaScript, so I just program as a hobby.
I'm Ben, and I myself use JavaScript a lot more than a professional.
And I'm Evan, and my only exposure is through streets, so I guess it would be hobby.
I'm Steve, and I use it for, it's actually pretty much the only language I programmed in for about 8 months or so.
Front row there. Mark?
Oh, I already went.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh. Oops, awkward. I'm Sean, also at Jobber. I Yeah, when I do get to program these days at work, it is generally in JavaScript. And yeah, hobby, I'm here. So cool. Well, thank you, everyone, and thanks for coming out tonight. If you do need access to Wi-Fi to perhaps tweet the meetup or to whatever it is you do on Wi-Fi, there's the password. There's the ID. It's also over there. So I'm going to make this slide go away, but it's to my left. Our next meetup is going to be on May the 4th, and in a future slide, I'll talk a little bit about the theme of that one. So this is the section where we jump into a bit of community news, so kind of new releases and what's just generally going on in the community. The slide deck contains a ton of links, so that's generally where you should just go after we post those. These are the releases I could scrape up from the past month. So Standard.js had its 10.0 release. Standard.js is basically just a collection of like linters and stuff and a style guide about like how you should write JS, and they're on their 10th major iteration of it now. Visual Studio Code had a 1.11 release. I think Visual Studio Code might end up on here every month because they're releasing every month, so might revisit that. I noticed they were on last month's slide as well, but had some new.
Had a point release since last night too.
Nice. I noticed they had some like improvements to how searches work and stuff, but don't have my speaker notes in front of me. So if any, that has a cool feature from that. Angular 4 came out. So Angular, if you're wondering like why it's suddenly Angular 2 to Angular 4, Angular went to semantic versioning recently, and so instead of having like Angular 0, I think they were on the 0 point system for a long time, and then they had 2 come out, and then now they've actually been sem versioning when they have like made like breaking changes. So they're like going to be incrementing that number quite frequently. My understanding, it's pretty much API equivalent with Angular 2. It's just had a few major changes that required the major version to increment. Anything like cool in Angular 4? Anyone has a shout out for? Sean?
I think Universal came in properly. The port was like an external module. So that's Angular's way to do, it's actually really interesting. It'll server-side compile your view and everything and send it to the user. And then while your browser is unpacking Angular and doing all its things that it does, it starts capturing all the user events. And then once Angular is ready, it plays them all back. So from the user's point of view, as soon as the request finishes, your application is running, which is really cool.
Interesting. Glimmer came out, or like was kind of split off from the Ember project. So this came out around the same time Ember Conf, which is going to be talked about in my next slide, was happening. So the Ember community was having a big conference, and they announced like Glimmer, which is their sort of efficient rendering engine. So it's how they like efficiently render DOM updates, essentially. So very similar to how like React would efficiently render like a diff of a DOM change. Glimmer's Ember's rendering engine. So they split that out into a new project, and there's a whole bunch of documentation up now about how to build like different components using just Glimmer without necessarily needing the entire Ember framework. So it'll be interesting to see how that project evolves. There's a ton of docs up. I haven't had a chance to dig in too much. Ben has a look like maybe he's dug in a bit.
So it's basically a competing project to React or like Vue.js, where it's just like a standalone Vue component library.
Yeah.
But with the, in theory, upsell that you could build it into, use those components inside an Ember application where you couldn't use a React components.
Yeah. Yeah, get rid of all the like, whereas those who haven't used Ember, it's very much like using something like Ruby on Rails. It's a big monolithic framework that takes care of your data and your, has controllers and routing. It takes away all that and lets you just build small pieces. jQuery 3.2.1 came out. The 1 came out right away afterwards because they also just introduced a bug and had to quickly have like a 1 come out, which I put on my speaker notes. These are all linked, so it's just click through afterwards. Ember 2.12 and the 2.13 beta came out. Anyone familiar with those? I was reading through the log on the Ember change. It didn't seem anything too groundbreaking. I think it accounts for the fact that Glimmer is now separate, but yeah. Those who aren't familiar with Ember, they're even versions or the stable longer-term supported versions, and they always release sort of a major even version with a beta at the same time that has the forthcoming features. And then Polymer 2 is inching along. Their release candidate came out, so they've for a few months been talking about Polymer 2 in blog posts and stuff, and now it's getting closer to release. Details linked. If you want to chat with us between meetups, we do some other events. So we do a monthly hack app where we get together and code stuff. If you want to just request talks or give feedback or just meet other people, this is basically like a chat system, something like Slack or that kind of ties in through the Git community, and you can all interact and get to meet each other between meetups. We use it a lot organizing the meetup, but we always encourage everyone to join. So for May the 4th, I mentioned there's a bit of a different theme happening. We're going to be promoting a demo night. So instead of having like a full night of formalized talks, we'll instead have, ideally, a bunch of demos lined up where people can just show off like things they're doing in JavaScript. So like, what are you building right now? Something you're proud of and want to show off. Yeah?
Like I wanted to actually show one of the apps that I'm building, but I'm not going to be done by the May the 4th. Is it possible to just show what is this going to be?
Is some of it functional and you can kind of run some code on the screen?
There's a lot of stuff, so
yeah.
We could take a look.
Yeah, we can talk about that after. I guess it would depend where it falls between just like pictures of what it'll look like versus. But if you have some aspects, components, different interactive features that are working, I'm answering this for everyone's sake as they're thinking about what they might demo. But yeah, it could be big or small. It could be like some components you built. It could be a whole application. It could be just like a visualization you've built in SVG. Whatever you think is cool and worth showing off. Probably like 5 minutes or less each. I don't know if you've settled on the format.
Code. That's the other big thing too. Is like ideally stuff that you can show off rather than having slides and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're interested, please let us know so we can get them all booked in. And then, do we have any regular talks that night as well?
We may actually have a regular talk. It sounds like
Okay.
We'll have to see how many demos we get and stuff because that's been the main focus of that.
Cool. So this is the extra credit notes, so I'm not going to dig too much into these. Just interesting reading that I found throughout the month, and there's weird indentation in retrospect. But there's a bunch of conferences happening in the past month. Ember Conf happened. So they had actually a really good State of the Union article, which it's the 5th anniversary of Ember right now, so it was actually retrospectively looking back at like what the ecosystem was like 5 years ago when they started. IE8 was the major browser at the time that they had to contend with, and just sort of what that ecosystem allowed for then, or didn't allow for them that we take for granted today with all the tooling and so forth that's available. There's also 2 days of videos online from that conference. They also did their community survey and have those results posted as well. The React Conf also happened in the past month. They have a conference website I linked to and videos from both days as well. So just kind of a big long stream of content from both days, from both conferences. There's a funny little article I read about JavaScript's void keyword. As much as I am sometimes think of myself as a bit of a JavaScript guru, I'd never used the void word in JavaScript before. I won't. No spoilers of what it does if you're not familiar, but it makes for a good read because you can.
Does it return undefined or just 0?
It makes like the thing before it undefined, so it lets you do weird things with. I said no spoilers, but I will. It kind of lets you do things like void before a function, and then you can execute the function without having to. It makes it so you're not defining a function anymore, but you can just execute that function immediately versus wrapping it in extra parentheses. There's like weird.
The only way I ever use it is to create the undefined value in a way that can't be overwritten by other scripts.
Yeah, like we'll just show one. Why not? That's what the internet's for. Like if you want to like do a return on a single line. And so if you want to call a callback but not have that callback's value returned, you could void and then call the callback, and then it would prevent the value of that callback from actually being returned by the function is like an example of it. But there's other ones in the article, so yeah. Interestingly, some of the browsers have been starting to switch how they deal with things like set timeout and like the prioritization of set timeout in regards to other events that the browser is pushing through. So this is actually a good read. Talks most of Firefox's changes regarding it. long story short, your set timeouts will generally still behave the same unless they're being very aggressive. But it's going to basically allow what it thinks of as priority events in the DOM or in the event loop have a chance to run if there's like a long series of set times out. So it'll basically, before set timeouts that may be defined within a set timeout are queued up, it'll let other stuff run first and then queue those afterwards. So they have a whole bunch of performance demos that show like the before and after behaviors. It's basically to avoid browser jank. So like while a lot of set timeouts are running, allowing like some of the animations and various other behaviors to run a bit smoother. Chrome's done similar things, and there's a general movement as well when tabs are backgrounded to also not rely as much on like set interval or set timeout. So it's just good changes to be aware of. Chromium has started to discourage the use of dialog, confirm, and prompt. So those really old, from circa 1995 JavaScript isms that are still with us, basically to make a nice aggressive pop-up happen. They're saying, please try to avoid those here. In this article, they're specifically just calling out other ways you can produce similar things, whether it's just doing a kind of your own dialogue in a window, maybe using the notifications API instead of an alert. So interesting to read. I wouldn't be surprised if now that they've had this policy change that at some point in the future, although they didn't say this, that they start throwing warnings in the console if you start using them or something.
Should let you change tabs while one is active.
Yes. Well, it depends on like Firefox will do the inline one so that and I think Safari too, so you're not stopped from doing other things, but Chrome's.
Yeah, that's the main policy, is that it's not that they wouldn't do an alert, it's that the alert wouldn't interrupt another tab.
Yeah.
That was kind of the way that the VM works and stuff for JavaScript.
Yeah. I think they may also be implementing the thing that other browsers have, where if you now go to a different tab while you have a dialogue, it will just dismiss it. I think Firefox or Safari or both maybe already do that. So it's good. It's good to read up on that. There's an article that just digs into all the vulnerable JavaScript libraries that are out there. So that's a good read. It's trusting all the libraries that nobody gets around to updating en masse. And then Stack Overflow also did its annual survey, and there's a bunch of interesting survey results from that and analysis. So if you want to see like how popular different programming languages are amongst the various community, who likes working in languages versus who hates working in languages, it's an interesting read. I also linked to another analysis article that I read relating to it. Yes?
Well, for all your conferences, NG-Conf is actually happening right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there's probably talks already from it, and there will be more soon.
Okay. For next month's slide, we'll link those. That also counts for the other. Good work. Any other like big releases or news that we missed from the month?
So
Yeah.
the React.js conference had some topics about React Fiber with React 15. And
Okay.
I watched 2 videos. I still don't know what it is.
I also don't know what it
It's
is.
just a rewrite of their rendering engine. So they're speeding up the internal code base and how it decides what to render and when. So
Yeah, I saw it, but I still can't figure out
it's not really for like public consumption, but it's weird that they're like promoting, hey, we're working on Fiber, without it being a thing that you and I would use. Like it's just gonna be the next React renderer, whether we like it or not. It's
like I watched it talk 45 minutes. And
yeah, it's really like low level.
Yeah. You know what's an interesting parallel to that is I mentioned Glimmer on the earlier slide, and Glimmer was kind of the same thing for Ember a few years, like last year. It was sort of like, oh, Glimmer is this new fancy magical thing that'll eventually come out that'll make everything faster, and then it's delayed, and eventually made its way into Ember, and is actually now pulled out. I don't think they have necessarily the same intention to use something that would be pulled out, but
I almost feel like they name these in a way of like a marketing scheme. Like
Yeah.
they sound cool, so it's like, oh, what is that? That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Any other notable items? Yeah.
Just, you had that item about the Chrome policy change, which reminded me of another Chromium discussion that's not JavaScript related, but might affect people. They're talking about no longer trusting semantic TLS certificates, because Semantic apparently just sells these certificates without actually making any effort to confirm they're going to the right people. And that could, if you run a website and you have HP look in and see if your certificate might get dinged by this change in policy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Forgot about that one. Yeah, Sean.
A really tiny thing, but it's kind of cool from the usability point of view, is the latest version of Safari comes with the reduced motion media query. You can add new CSS, which actually checks if the user has requested reduced motion for any sort of usability reasons. You can actually query your CSS and have your site react to this. You're not going to be like throwing giant things in people's faces who for reasons can't handle it.
Oh, it's really interesting. Maybe it should be like people opt into that. That might be the better experience. Opting into the flashiness. Okay, quickly some upcoming events. This is thrown off of the Startup Edmonton calendar for the most part. Anything? I'll shout out our own, April 19th. So we do a monthly Exchange.js Hackup. Usually we host that over at the Jobber office. We're not super good at promoting it well in advance, but it's there on the Meetup website, and we get a few people at minimum out every month. And if we do a better job of marketing it or having a theme, more people come. So if you're interested in getting together like mid-month to work on something, to learn something, it's like a good night to just throw in your calendar as like, hey, I know if I come that night, I'll like work on this thing, whether it's like a project or learning a new framework or something.
You can work on your demo for the May 4th meetup.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that would be a really good opportunity. Any other big ones I missed? Cool. Job shout out. I was like in these slides and I thought we'd get through them a lot quicker, but I guess this is how long it takes. Hiring, Jobber. Because it's conflict of interest for the MC to talk about Jobber because he works at Jobber. I'll throw it to Sean. Well, you're also speaking today. I'm going to throw it to Andrew. Ben always does it, so I'm mixing things up.
Yeah, so Jobber, great place to work. Yeah, we're always hiring good devs, so if you're interested, reach out to someone here, and Ben will take it away from here.
What does Jobber do?
Right. Okay. So we build software for field service businesses. So people that go out in the field to actually interact with customers and like house painters, lawnmowers, etc. We build software for them.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Andrew. Cleo, do we have anyone from? Oh yeah. Hey.
I'm Jeff. So I'm from Cleo. I work remotely. Cleo is based out of Burnaby, and we have developers in Alberta, so Calgary and Edmonton. And so we're looking for intermediate and advanced JavaScript developers, or senior. I guess we call them senior JavaScript developers. And Cleo makes software as a service. It is basically an application that lawyers use to manage their practice and their business.
Sometimes I like to say Cleo is the like Jobber of law, or like vice versa.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Software as a service type
Yeah.
stuff. Cool, solving problems.
Yeah. Anyone here from Groundify? Nope. Okay. Groundify's hiring. I don't know what. Shobi?
They're hiring a lot for Austin, Texas.
Yes. Yeah, maybe we should update the.
They still have the job listing
They
listed,
do?
so
Okay.
I'm assuming it's still there, but
Okay.
that's what I've heard.
They are still hiring them.
They are? Okay.
Austin's a cool city.
Shobi, anyone from Shobi? Also hiring. Google them if you're looking. And True Home, I also don't see the True Homers here.
I actually think I have that job now. So.
This one? Did you just get hired at True Home?
It's the front-end developer.
Oh, okay. I don't have Mark through in the jobs, so. Cool.
Yeah, that's right. We'll hope that that
Are they looking for data scientists as well?
They might be looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think there may be one more.
Well, if that's true, congrats on the thing.
Yeah.
Any other, anyone else hiring in the room that doesn't have a slide? Yeah?
Yes, I'm with the Weekend Group, which is a family office based out of Edmonton. Strong presence in financial services. We have a bank, we have insurance companies. Recently joined them to kind of build out their technology strategy. We need a team to do that. So if anybody's interested, we need a number of folks. We're just starting to get a little bit more active here, so this is probably the first thing we need to do. We're looking to go after opportunities in insurance front-end stuff, JavaScript, and then we have like a whole bunch of different, we have a mishmash of technology. We use Linux Tech, we use RGB if you're interested in mainframe programming, and a number of different things. But there will be a need for JavaScript programs as well.
Cool. Anyone else? Yep.
I'm with a company called CMG. It's based in Edmonton. We have small developer teams that work on web applications and mobile applications for internal communication of big companies. And we recently switched to Angular 2. And right now we're looking for front-end developers with like half a year to maybe a few years of experience. We're looking for a junior to intermediate position developer. So come talk to me if you're interested. We have small developer teams that work with big companies like University of Alberta, Alberta Health Services, some banks.
Cool. Thanks. Anyone who's interested in the various things now, to just find the people after. Usually that's the best way. Yeah, good. All right, time for our speakers. I think that's why you're getting gestured at over there in the back corner. So first up, we're going to have the dynamic duo of Sean Healy and Eston Edwards give a talk on developer productivity and TypeScript. I made them take this photo earlier today so that there would be something on the slide. All right. WebAssembly. It's pretty much in the early days. It's cool that they're getting some support for it. So it's just like an interesting topic for me to like keep attuned to. It'll be interesting to see like little libraries that are really specialized in certain things be the first use cases for WebAssembly. So I'm sure it's something we'll be hearing a lot of in the meetup for the next few years. Thanks to all of our speakers tonight. We also have a few other thanks for sponsors. So Jobber is one of our sponsors. They help the budget our sponsors provide helps us with our audio equipment, the food we all eat, and some other expenses the meetup occurs. So thank you, Jobber. Also, one of our sponsors, Clio, same spiel. Thank you. And for the space, thank you, Startup Edmonton, also for the meetup, community support, etc. So thanks to them as well. So again, the next meetup of this style is on May the 4th. That's demo night. Please, 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 even if it's like a 2-minute demo, we'd love to see what you guys are working on. We talk a lot about, it's distracting to change slides as I'm going through. We talk a lot about, like we do a lot of these like long presentations and we talk a little bit over beer, but we never really get a good chance to see what we all make and what we all do and what we're all hacking on. So that'd be really cool to get a lot of presentations next month.
Prizes too, I should point out. So
prizes, yeah, motivation. Also, just another shout out again for the hack up on April 19th. All right, thank you, everyone. We're going to go for, I guess there's the beer slide. It's way at the end. Drinks. So those who want to hang around, network, talk code, whatevs, we'll be down at the Mercer afterwards. Try to discourage too much hanging around here. So it's getting nice out. It's no longer winter. So if you want to keep chatting afterwards, feel free to do so like downstairs or head over to Mercer. But we're going to be cleaning up for a few minutes, so it's not like we're going to boot you right away. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.